Hello. I'm writing an email right now. I took a break. This will be the third one I sent today. I know that I have no right to expect forgiveness. I know that, I understand that. I do, of course, magic. Goddamn, I get that, right? Right? But if, right? Right? He can't keep them, that's the point, right? Just that I can't get into Hollywood, that's one thing. That's one thing. Right? But if they, right? That he's holding them illegally if they want to come to me, and he's preventing them from coming to me. Right? At the very least, Sydney and Mikey. At the very least. The two that are in his house, right? That's a weird kind of legal quagmire, but he doesn't, right? They're not his family. Right? That's no one has any legal right to keep me from them beyond that they can say, I don't want to see you. They can make a video call, but I'll never believe that. Right? And I know that my point is that I know they understand my terms. That's my point. That they know that I don't care to fuck them. That's not. And of course I would. Who wouldn't? But this is about human decency. That's the point. Right? It's about basic human decency. And so this saga in relation to the movie critic now leads me to believe that they are in fact in danger, in legitimate danger. That they've been subjected to the deepest psychological torture that anyone could possibly fathom, as well as a deep sexual torture, sadism, for the last 5 years. Right? And so, right, they see in me a way out, like a true schism of their minds from Quentin. That's the point. That it could have been gracious, right? And this is where I failed as a clairvoyant, to see that he perhaps does have control in this same way over several beautiful women who need a way out. That's there it is. That's why he's been so weird, because it's all the women who are yeah, we want to rest under your tree now. He's too much. Right? That's there it is, right? Could have been more gracious in that way. Right? That I could have sacrificed something in me and the women were the exchange for that. Right? That holding them, that we all would have had this kind of stain on our minds. Right? And so when I think about the women, right? When I think about Mikey and Sydney in particular, of course, Daniela, I write her mother all the time too. Like all their families, But in particular, as far as the movie is concerned, right? If Daniela, right? If Rick Dalton was on there one day, he was probably with Daniela, and they had a scene together, and she didn't actually take her clothes off. But as far as Sydney and Mikey, if they're doing hardcore sadistic sexual shit on that film, and up until they saw my letter, they just felt like sluts who were spreading their legs for $1 million to satiate Quentin's sexual perversions. Does it not make sense that when they saw my headshot and they saw my argument and saw me playing guitar, that they maybe would go a little googly-eyed immediately? Not because I'm trying to seduce them, but because now they have a real man to justify this sacrificing of their sexual identity onto a film in such an egregious way. Does that not? That kind of does actually make a lot of sense, as far as they know that I am charming enough to look at their parents and say, nice to meet you, yeah, what a day at the office. She's so great, I want to hang out with her all the time, and all those things. Right? That's that kind of makes a lot of sense, actually. That now that it's Brad, as soon as they saw me and they thought about Brad, they're just bitches who get fucked for money. That's how they see it. Right? But in relation to me, it's oh, he's cool, he's so cool. He helped me have a good time on this movie. Right? He shined his light and made it all feel worthwhile and meaningful. And right? Is that right? That kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And so I couldn't see that because I saw what the movie was through my lens. I thought that the movie was about someone like me. Right? I don't write about pornography, but I feel like the world is right? I saw him as one of my characters. That's the point. That's the point, that I feel that the world is always occurring all around me and I write about it. Right? But if the truth is that the movie critic is a pornographic actor, right, because he's Quentin, right, and Quentin wants to be remembered by being as a writer, but likely will only be remembered for his sexual sadism in his films. That's how he sees himself psychologically. right? That when Quentin refused to reconcile with me, that then they saw like the full scope of like what he was trying to do as far as like being a goblin, right? And said, okay, like here's the moment. Like they've always saw it better than I did. Oh, so you don't, like, you're never going to talk to this man that will, like, actually make this movie meaningful for us? We want to speak to him. We don't want to do the movie anymore. That actually does make a lot of sense. As far as him compelling them to sign NDAs, permission waivers, holding them in a quasi-criminal fashion, trying to compel me to blow my brains out, right? Because he understands what they're saying, right? That we want to put ourselves in front of him and explain everything and pray that he'll protect us and be good to us because the way that you treat us is disgusting. And now that he's walked away from this opportunity, seeing how you treated his mind in that moment, we see a pathway to a healthier psychological lifestyle and understanding of our sexual identity with him instead of you. Yes, that's what I'm saying right now. And everyone around him, right? The thought of him being who he is in relation to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and like talking to all these like young actresses and like everyone else around him, just like patting him on the back in this like satanic way is like really upsetting to me on a fundamental level. And perhaps none of them have truly considered it until now, but now we're talking about it, you know? That when he made Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, right, you allowed him to take dominion over these women in a truly pathological, dangerous way, right? And so now they can't live like that anymore. They can't just like be the beast of burden, right? For his mental illness. They can't just do that anymore. That's the point, right? And so when they saw my headshot, their mind started being free for the first time in years, you know? So it was liberated by the idea of like bringing this guy into the fold and like allowing him the treasures of their body because he's like a real divine like child of God, right? Like that's like, right? I don't mean to sound like an arrogant ass, but like it does seem like pretty clear that this whole thing is mired in so much darkness that they saw like a radiant totem that they could like spread their legs for and say, you tell them how it was. I don't want to talk about it. Doesn't that? Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And so I write these emails several times a day, not telling them that I deserve to have this hot pussy, that like I deserve to like take this from him in exchange for him torturing me for 2 years, right? But that's what it is in his mind, right? That he's like, oh, eventually he'll sue and I'll have to give them to him, and then, right, I'm justified, right? But what I'm saying is that that's actually illegal, right? No, I don't actually have to sue, right? That if I keep like saying these things, there's going to be 1,000 documents that I can use as evidence, right? That I can use in an argument to prove, right? Illegal imprisonment, right? First degree rape, right? And so now I haven't been talking about this a lot, but it's always true as well, right? That my life feels perpetually in danger. This is like a huge reason why I do all this. It's not to get hot pussy. It's because he's so ill in his mind, right, that he expects me to just live this way for 15 years, for the last 15 years of his life. And I can't do that. I can't do that. And the reality, right, for all of us is that he's so far in our minds, right? Like, he could have been dead for 3 days and I wouldn't know until someone looks me in the eye or I see something online. And I don't know that he's not above faking his own death and taking these women to an island somewhere, right? But I don't say these things to humiliate myself. I don't say them to humiliate Quentin. I don't say anything to justify my cowardice, right? No Hollywood access for me, right? But it is illegal on an esoteric level, on a magical level, to hold those women from coming to me if they wish to see me, right? And since it seems pretty obvious that he probably does treat them very similar to how he treats me, that they have no other option, you get it? That's the real point, isn't it? Right? That if everything's peachy keen in all their lives, right, then it's nothing for them to come here, look me in the eye one time and say, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, you're like, no, I don't know like what you're talking about at all. Right? So if the truth is that, right, they don't want to be with me, why haven't they told me on my terms? That's the point. Right? No more like defining like how we interact anymore. I believe that your lives are in danger. I believe that you've been under a deep sexual sadism for a long time. I want to put eyes upon you and have you say it to my face that I'm wrong. Right? And if you can do it without crying, right? If you can do it sincere of heart, right? I relinquish you back into his care and we speak no more on it. Right? If they're unwilling to do that, it's because, right, he does not want them to be in front of me because he knows that they'll never leave my side. Right? And he lost on some level. So I can at least sue him. That's like how he sees it in his mind. But again, right, that's illegal. Right? What do they have to say about it? So they're just like, so Sydney Sweeney's okay with me calling her a rape victim for all the months through, right? We're notifying the press. Is that, right? They're just going to make all the press that interview them sign NDAs, and that could occur. That could occur. Right? But my point is that, right? They're cool. They're cool, right? That's my real point, right? Like, they want to fucking spread their legs for me? Like, god damn, yes ma'am, Mikey Madison. Holy shit. That's fucking rad, right? But if they don't, right, as a result of the rarefication of this scenario, right? If you've read the scene in the novel, right, as far as the torture that we're talking about here, it's really deep, sadistic, fucked up campaigns against people, right? That the only way that I can know is if they're in front of me, is if they look me in the eye and I say, don't move, and I just go full fucking awkward, right, blast all the way through their psyche, and I feel like they're gonna start crying immediately and fall into me and say, I'm sorry I involved you, but we can't be around him anymore. Yeah, that's like what I'm saying. And he's being a bridge troll, right, and all these things. And I understand that his world's crashing down around him, you know? But, right, you have the right to keep me out of Hollywood, right? You don't have the right to force them to stay in. That's too far. That's a bridge too far, right? That's a crime. That's illegal imprisonment. That's my point. And so, right, I have to keep talking about it because I'm afraid he's going to kill me, right? Because this is like, he's holding them, right? If they can't come to me, he's holding them. That's like what's occurring, right? Like, oh gosh, like I deserve to see Danielle Pick in person without Quentin? Yeah, that's like what I'm saying, right? No security, no nothing, LAPD, that's it. True authorities, right? Or your mother and your sister, right? Your family, not his family. Right? Not because I made all those jokes about you. Not because, like I said, you were a celestial goddess and like I wanted to know every part of you. You know, like not why. Right? Any man says that about you every time they see any of your pictures. I'm sure about that. Right? It's about knowing that you're safe in the world, right? White magic, black magic. Right? I refused to sacrifice any of my purity for a career, but now I see that he has these pure things like underneath him, under his dominion, manipulated to such a degree that they did not understand what they were signing up for. And when you saw me, right, turn my back, right, then those women all said, oh, whoa, here's a guy who like actually gets it, right? And so while we wanted him, now we see we need him, right? Because he's so pure, he's not going to give Quentin an inch, and he's the only one that can keep us safe. Right? That's like, kind of makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? So, right? Corporate espionage, billion-dollar companies, right? Psychic bullies, right? Is Sony Pictures prepared to have me write their investor email group, as well as Tom Rothman forever? Is that like, are we on the same page here? Does that seem like feasible? Where I call him rapists, right? Right? Is it okay for Mikey Madison that I tell her agent every day that you guys are pimps and you need to give me the 20% that you earned off of that movie so that I can sue? So that's like, right, you understand what I'm saying, right? That, right, they can leave Hollywood, right? They can say, no, the Hollywood mind game's not for us. Brian's for us because he's cool and he doesn't like those games. That's a valid decision, right? That has nothing to do with me being a coward, right? That they can take their beauty and their money and go elsewhere. That's the point, right? And so this is the difficult part, like on a fundamental level, right? And why I'm afraid, right? Because it does establish a new paradigm, right? It does establish, right, a new school of psychic occultism, right? Pure honesty, pure divinity, pure truth, right? Establishing true, legitimate real estate in the psychic landscape of performance arts. So, let me know what you think.